My name is Ops and welcome to 100 Days of Raft. Come join me on this adventure exploring islands, exploring oceans, building and upgrading my raft, exploring story locations as I plan to hit as much as 6 throughout the next 100 days. As I woke up on day 1 in the middle of the ocean floating on a raft, with nothing but a hook in my hand, I immediately knew what I needed to do. Hey, I did say I knew, that doesn't mean I'm able to, as I have horrible aim. I hopped in the water and that's when I was met by Bruce.
Hey, this ain't so bad. Oh
Allow me to introduce Bruce, the blood-hungry shark that will be following me around. Oh, and did I mention I'm planning to kill Bruce 100 times throughout the next 100 days? But more on that later. For now, I just needed to escape with my life and start collecting all the goodies that I would need to start expanding my tiny little raft. Luckily, I did spot quite a few barrels and these give a ton of loot. I also spotted my very first island, but I didn't have enough stone for an anchor, so I dove down and hoped my raft wouldn't leave me behind.
Come on, quickly, my raft's floating away. I ain't got time for you, Bruce. Oh, luckily it crashed. Okay, perfect.
After that risky move, I was able to craft my very first spear, and now it was time to square off against my nemesis.
Come on, Bruce, is that all you got? Come on, get the timing right. That's what you get, Bruce.
After collecting some shark meat, I also made my very first storage so I could drop off some of my goodies. I then hopped back into the ocean and dove down to see what goodies lied in store, collecting some seaweed, some metal ore, and as I was collecting some clay, I spotted the shadow of Bruce and knew I needed to get out. After crafting my first stone axe, I went to the island to start harvesting all the trees. I then spotted a loot crate that gave me hinges as well as glass on the first day. This was a great find. On the morning of day 2, I squared off with Bruce yet again.
Oh, come on, final hit. Yes!
My spear broke on the final hit, but Bruce was dead and I could collect the final ocean goodies and then make my way back to the raft to craft up a second storage bin as I was really in need of some more space. I also made a building hammer to repair the raft as well as a paddle so I could safely paddle away from the island edge. I fished in some more barrels and got my first blueprint of a receiver. This would definitely help me with some navigation. Shortly after, I also got the antennas. The next morning, I needed to start working on the basic essentials. I made myself a research table, expanded the raft a bit and collected more materials to continue my building. Finally dropped down the table, a water purifier and a small grill, and now things were really going well. I was getting a ton of material, my raft was coming together nicely, but Bruce didn't like that at all. So I quickly grabbed my spear and took care of the big bad bully. The rest of the day I spent gathering material when I spotted yet another island. This was really a great find. Finally I had stone for an anchor, I had shark meat to fill my tummy, and once I got close enough to the shore I dropped down anchor, made myself another spear. I then dropped in the water to get my revenge for Bruce nibbling on my raft. I collected some more shark meat, cooked it up, and hopped back into the ocean to collect all sorts of goodies yet again. Now that the waters were safe, I could safely go around collecting everything I could possibly find. I then dropped everything off and the next morning continued harvesting all the copper I could find. Well, that is until Bruce returned and nibbled on my butt. But for some reason, Bruce was particularly a lot stronger on this day. He went through a spear and a half, and finally on the very last hit of my second spear, I managed to take him down. So I gathered some more ocean loot and made it ashore to gather up all the trees that I could find, since wood on this game is practically gold. That evening I dropped off all my goodies, released the anchor and I set sail yet again. I took a brief nap, only the next morning to find that I'd barely sailed away from the island. The next morning I reeled in some more loot and I was able to make a collection net. These help gather up floating objects passively. As I spotted yet another island, I knew I needed to go there. Islands were really great. They came with a ton of resources, wood and fruits, not to mention the underwater loot. Bruce came to check out my new collection nets, but of course we couldn't have that. So I hopped in the water as the sun was setting and I took care of my good old friend for a 5th time. I then made my way back to the raft, filled up my tummy and took a nap. The next morning had a nice refreshing cup of water and spotted yet another island, so I dropped anchor, collected all the wood I could find as well as the crates on the island, but I was really running out of space, so I decided to make yet another storage bin and also tried to figure out how the research table worked, as you place raw items and learn what they are able to make, such as wet bricks for example that are essential to a smelter. I then dove back into the ocean to collect some goodies.
Come here, Bruce.
And after taking care of my nemesis, I was able to calmly go around, collected the ocean goodies and picked up anchor to start paddling away. But I slightly crashed into the island and this ended up turning my raft. I then took a quick nap as this would be tomorrow's problem. But this was a big problem. My raft was sailing sideways and all my collection nets were practically useless. Luckily my bricks had dried up, so I was able to grab them, research the smelter and craft me some. I then made myself a streamer so I would be able to see the wind direction. I also crafted a calendar and saw I had survived a full week. I then found an island that I was able to alter my raft's direction by steering into it and finally correcting it sailing forward yet again. So I dropped anchor and went exploring for any good loot.
Oh, that was such a good snipe.
I grabbed the last piece of wood I needed for another axe, chopped some trees, grabbed some seaweed and collected some metal ore and any other goodies that I managed to find. The sun was just starting to set and I noticed that Bruce had respawned, so I quickly took care of my good old friend and went back to harvesting. I wanted to focus on getting as much clay and sand to make even more smelters. By the next morning I finally had everything that I needed, killed the not so mighty Bruce, picked up some shark meat as well as anchor and chucked my metal ingot into the research table. I made myself another smelter and discovered an abandoned raft that had some more goodies on board. I then made an advanced grill that evening, so now I could really start cooking up some Bruce. The next morning I enjoyed some breakfast and my smelters were hard at work making ingots as well as vine goo from smelting seaweed. I made myself a large storage bin, but Bruce tried to interrupt me, and after eating one of my nets I managed to place them down and tried to organize all of my stuff. That evening I spotted some sea turtles. This was awesome to see, but I knew big old man Bruce would be bullying them. So I killed Bruce and the sea turtles lived happily ever after. The next morning I enjoyed some nice breakfast, dropped some more collection nets, and that's when I spotted it, my very first big island, on day 10. Finally I could see if there was more life out there, as I was really starting to feel lonely. I made a more advanced anchor and placed it down, paddled as close as I possibly could, and dropped anchor. I then spotted a llama on shore, and knew I wanted to befriend him. I already had the net gun, I just needed the ammo. I then saw Bruce didn't like my new anchor, so he needed to die. The next morning I got ready and geared up for the challenge that lied ahead. This was not going to be an easy mission. Making the net gun would require pufferfish, but man, I really wanted a llama.
You're gonna be my friend whether you like it or not.
I then made my way back to the raft to craft my bow and arrows. Killed Bruce and went searching for the notorious little yellow fish. Now, why am I scared of these little guys, you might ask? Well, if these guys get too close and touch you, they end up exploding. And that means they despawn. Now, I really just needed to hope there would be another one on the island. The next morning, I fueled up, ready to go searching again. After killing Bruce, of course. I then finally spotted another pufferfish, shot my arrows from a safer distance, and this time I was successful and got 2 explosive goo, which was perfect since I needed to research one. I then dropped it down and tried to take a nap, but apparently it wasn't dark enough. After waiting a few seconds I finally went to bed, noticed I didn't have enough plank, so I went harvesting, found another crate, chopped down some more trees and found yet another pufferfish. I was definitely taking this llama home with me. All I would need now is food for the little guy. Luckily there was a cave on the island which meant dirt, so I finished smelting my goo to make explosive powder, researched the net gun ammo, brought the raft even closer and dropped anchor, and finally made the ammo that I needed as well as the shovels for the dirt. I then went to kill Bruce so I could finish harvesting up the ocean before collecting my new friend the next morning. I wanted to rest up well because I couldn't afford missing any shots as this ammo was super expensive. Finally I made the little crock pot, dropped down my grass in his little pin, and I went hunting for my little friend.
No, I thought you had to load it up like the bow.
After missing both my shots, I was feeling really frustrated. so I took out my anger on Bruce. I then went back to the island and noticed a little store. Hoped that they had net gun ammo, but unfortunately not. I then went back to harvesting all the ocean loot until the annoying Bruce was back, and I quickly had to take care of him. After grabbing some more shark meat, made my way back to the raft to take a nap and decided I would go searching one more time, but unfortunately my spear broke and I had to run from Bruce. I then made it across to the other side and hopped in the water for one final search for pufferfish, but no luck. Now I just needed to say goodbye to my potential friend and continue this journey being lonely for now.
Oh, he actually stopped to turn back. Buddy, you wanna come with me? I'm so sorry, I failed you, man.
Feeling heartbroken, I picked up anchor, dropped down a sail, and continued the journey forward. As the sun rose the next day, I took care of Bruce and then spotted a tiny little island near me. So I managed to correct my raft and now I was sailing backwards, which at least meant the nets were working again. I also made an advanced purifier that would take a lot more water. I made my way to another abandoned raft to collect all the goodies they had on board. I then spotted that evening my sea turtle friends were back, but so was Bruce, so of course I had to protect them yet again. After killing the big old bully, I took a nice nap, woke up on the morning of day 17 and continued sailing towards islands, dropping anchor and collecting all the nearby resources. I also started smelting down some copper, made my way ashore to harvest some wood and grab loot, killed Bruce and started collecting all the ocean resources. Once I had everything, I picked up anchor and continued pushing forward. I dropped down some wet bricks and angled my sail to stay with the wind. The next morning, grabbing some more loot as well as barrels and spotted another island. I really needed to start working on my navigation, so I grabbed some wood and copper, killed Bruce and grabbed the remaining ocean resources. I wanted to make antennas, which would require the raft to have a second floor. So after starting to build, I took a brief nap and continued again the next morning. After filling up my tummy and clearing out my nets, I noticed another big island, which meant a ton of resources and a chance to befriend the local wildlife, since there was not one but 2 llamas and a goat. So I killed Bruce, cleared out the ocean, prepared all my scuba gear and I went searching for pufferfish the next morning. Luckily by now I was trained on killing these things, so I killed my first and grabbed the goo, spotted another and slaughtered it, and found even a third, but Bruce didn't like my plans and tried to interrupt me, but I had all the goo, I had another killed Bruce, and finally I could start melting down my explosive powder. Now I had the nets that I would need, one more chance of making a friend. I lined up my shot and finally summoned up the courage to take it.
No!
I then had a better shot and finally I had my first llama.
You're mine, buddy!
So I took him back to the raft, dropped him down and named him Timothy. And if Timmy sounds familiar, comment down why. I was super excited. I knew Timmy now needed a friend. So I went and searched for the second llama and finally my aim was improved. So I picked her up and took her back to the raft as well. Dropped her down and named her Stacy. The 2 of them looked so happy. I then got some more dirt as they were definitely gonna need more food. And by the time I left the cave, I noticed the sun was coming up and something was chasing me. A warthog. This was the first time I've seen them, so of course I had to put some arrows in its butt, but my bow broke so I had to finish it up with a spear. I then collected some leather and raw meat and saw another creature on the island. This was some bird that tried to drop rocks on my head, so I crafted a new bow and went to show it who was boss. I had to perfectly time my shots, but luckily could get some in on the ground, and just before he would drop the rocks, I managed to get some shots in. On my literal final arrow, he finally went down, so I grabbed some feathers and my trophy, slaughtered up Bruce and went back to the raft, when I noticed my llamas were starving. This grass was not enough. I needed more plastic, I needed more wood. If they wouldn't get another crop pot, they would most likely die.
No, please don't die, they look so sad.
Luckily I managed to get all the plastic and wood, dropped 2 more down and they seemed okay. The next morning I ran into a small island and was able to use it to get my raft to finally sail straight. Of course, Bruce had to get his bite in since he didn't like that, and after stabbing him a few times he stopped. I made some shears so I could give my llamas a nice haircut. I also realized that wool would now unlock armor for me, which was awesome. I continued sailing around and emptying out my nets when I spotted yet another island, and it was yet another big one. So I dropped anchor, killed Bruce, and made another grass crop pot for the llamas. I had a quick nap, and the next morning made my way ashore. I spotted another goat as well as some loot crates, killed another warthog, and went searching around. I spotted another cave, which meant dirt, which meant grass, because my llamas were looking sad all the time. I saw Bruce nibbling on the side of my boat, so I knew I had to teach him a lesson. I found the only pufferfish on the island, so I killed it and grabbed the goo, and went searching for the goat, but that's when I spotted a chicken. But after searching for him, he completely vanished mid-air. So I spent the rest of the night harvesting up all the wood, and ran into the screecher, yet another bird dropping stone on me. But I ran out of arrows, so I went to grab some stone to craft up some more, went back to finish the fight. However, this screecher was a lot stronger than normal and my aim was bad, so I ended up running out of arrows yet again. I then went back to the raft, killed Bruce, made some more explosive powder, and went searching for the goat or chicken. Finally, I found the goat. I had just one shot. I knew I needed to make sure of this.
I suck at this.
So I went to blow off steam by killing Bruce yet again, set sails, and gave the llamas yet another haircut. I then started expanding on my roof and took a brief nap to continue work again the next day. Finally, I had a receiver. I dropped down my antennas since I required 3 to triangulate the signal. And finally, I had a direction, so I set sail, moved my anchor, and continued pushing forward. I dropped down a hammock so I could have another nap, and by the next morning I was getting even closer. I was really excited. My very first story location. But the wind wasn't on my side. I was drifting away from it slowly but surely, so I knew I needed to paddle with everything I had, and that's when I saw it. Some form of a radio tower. As I finally got close enough, dropped anchor, after evening's rest and killing Bruce, I was finally ready to go exploring. The people here left behind a ton of goodies for me. I finally found the way to make it up onto the radio tower and went investigating, searching around high and low for any sign of life.
Dang, it looks good.
I made it to the tip top, and that's when I saw a person. After unlocking the new playable character, I dove down into the water, quickly took care of Bruce, grabbed the ocean treasures, and killed Bruce again. I gave my llamas another haircut and was able to make a backpack for more storage, and noticed I grabbed the blueprint but no note for my next location. I knew there was more to the story here. What did I miss? So I searched around every nook and cranny, and finally at the radio controls I found a note. Speaking of people, a possible new location? Was there more life out here? As I dove down, made my way onto the raft, I started typing my new coordinates. People. Was there more of us out here? More survivors? I knew I needed to find them. I also decided now was as good a time as any to reward myself with opening up all my decoration packages. I found another island, so I dropped anchor, enjoyed my bruised dinner and went to sleep, and the next morning went ashore to gather up all the resources. Killed Bruce so I could gather up all the ocean resources, killed Bruce yet again in the evening, and then finally I was ready to set sail. I needed all the resources I could find. I didn't know what was lying ahead, but I wanted to be prepared. So I dropped anchor and went to harvest a ton of wood, and once the island was clear, dropped into the water, got my daily kill of Bruce, and finally I was ready to set sail. I kept sailing in the direction of the new coordinates, but I knew I needed to stop at every single island I could find. So I got another good night of rest, and the next morning noticed I was really close, but so was a large island, so I decided I would clear this up first before finally heading over to the location. So I dropped anchor and made my way ashore. Killed a little warthog, harvested his meat, harvested all the trees I could find, and I noticed my screecher friend off in the distance. Finally I could settle the score. This time I had more than enough arrows, so I was able to take it down. Not only that, he led me to another cave, where I could find even more dirt, which meant more food for the llamas. I also made some metal arrows, dropped down the grass, and the next morning killed Bruce and went searching for more pufferfish. I was able to find 2, but this also meant I would now have 2 more nets. I killed Bruce again that evening, and once I got back to the raft, made my nets, took a nap, and got ready to go expand my petting zoo the next morning. But this is why you shouldn't pause when you have a net gun launcher. Knowing I just wasted one of my ammo, I only had one left, and I needed this llama. I was not gonna give up, so I followed him around, perfectly timed my shot, and then finally took it. Feeling super proud of myself, I took Wilson back to the raft, dropped him off, and hopped in the ocean to kill Bruce before setting sail. Once he was dealt with, I set sail, picked up anchor, picked up some bricks, and dropped my bed right next to my companions. I then double checked that I was sailing in the right direction and saw I was really close. I dropped down some more nets, continued expanding my raft, and also started building my very first room. I moved all my smelters to this location so things would get a little bit more structured, moved my sail to the front, and just as my battery ran out and I had no sense of direction, I spotted it off in the distance. Some form of a yacht. So I grabbed my paddles and I started paddling with every ounce of energy that I had. Finally I got close enough and I dropped anchor. I collected the last nearby loot so I would be able to make any weapons that I would need. And after grabbing the last crate, I saw the sun was setting. So I made my way back to the raft to get a good night's rest, and the next morning I realized something. You know, back when I was on the radio tower, when I passed this room called C1, not once, but twice, I ended up missing out on an important flashlight. I was gonna need it to see inside the yacht, so I needed to go back. This was a massive setback, but luckily the wind was on my side. And finally I had made it back, paddled up close, dropped anchors, killed Bruce, and went searching for the blueprint.
It was right here. How did I miss this?
I started typing the coordinates but ran out of batteries, so finally got a new one and I was setting sail back to the yacht. The problem was the wind was not on my side, so I decided to spend the whole day on working on some modifications in the hope that it would turn, but I was just getting further and further, so I knew all I could do was paddle in the hope this would get me closer, and it did. Every time I would paddle, I would get nearly 200 meters closer to the coordinates. So that's what I set out to do. For the next few days, that was all I could do. Paddle my little arms off, right into the evening skies, not resting, paddling in the mornings, afternoons and evenings. Finally, I was really getting close. By the next morning, I might just be there. And then finally, the raft was in my sights yet again. I came as close as I possibly could, dropped anchor, quickly killed Bruce, made my weapons as well as my headlight and some arrows, and finally got some more practice in on Bruce. I was ready, so I made my way on board. I wasn't sure what to expect. Was the crew even still alive? Would I find people here?
I heard from the captain we're heading for one of the high-rises down south. I can only hope you come to your senses and follow us.
After listening to the notes, I broke in, and that's when I saw it. Some rabid creature.
Yo, what the hell's this thing? Die, die! There we go.
I continued searching, finding some more loot as well as some locked doors, mechanical parts, and another note.
I saw a large rat last night. Unnervingly large.
Was she talking about the same mutant rats that I had seen?
As if suspecting the crews of being competent. Now they're claiming rats have eaten half of our supplies in a matter of weeks.
But it didn't sound like the captain listened to the warnings.
What does that mean? You can't just fire them. We're out at sea.
Hanna, you were brought to keep the engines running. That is what you...
That's one of those damn rats. What are you doing to it?
Get out! Do your job.
I got the final mechanical parts, and it was kind of bothering me. Was the captain experimenting with these rodents? I went back to make my car jack, slaughtered some more of them, doing my part to kill the infestation. And that's when I found the captain's door, but it was locked and I needed a bomb. I found the door where I could use my jack, and that's when I got another note.
Cities in the blue.
It was talking about cities. Were there still cities out there? There would definitely be people. So I continued searching around for all the final bomb components, sorted some more rodents, and then finally I found the last part, listened to a recording of how the yacht crashed, and I made my way back to the basement to craft up my bomb. Now I was able to blow into the captain's quarters. And I went in to investigate. Haha, no more relying on wind. I also found the note for my next location and went back to the raft to feed my starving animals as well as take care of Bruce since I missed him the last few days. I was super excited about these engines. I immediately made the first one and this thing looked amazing. I then also crafted up the steering wheel and placed it down, had a quick night's rest, and the next morning killed Bruce and got ready to start up my engines. But they were only strong enough to move 100 foundations. I was way beyond this, so I knew heading to my next location, Balboa Island, I would be able to find the missing resources along the way. By the next morning I went to check my collection nets, and lo and behold I had enough for my second engine, dropped it down and finally booted them up.
Full steam ahead, boys!
I quickly made sure I was heading in the right direction, altered my course, and boy was I moving. This was amazing. I dropped down more collection nets so I could grab all the trash along the way, and by the evening looked onto my raft really taking shape. I also moved my calendar to the front, dropped anchors at a small island, quickly took care of Bruce, went ashore to grab a ton of wood as these engines were really expensive to run. I filled them up as much as I could, and by the next morning booted them up, and I angled my raft to another nearby small island. I needed to make sure that I kept my engines full at all times. Finally I arrived, got ready to drop anchor, hopped in the water to kill Bruce, and I did some target practice with my bow and arrows. I then went ashore to harvest up all the trees, filled up the engines and continued pushing forward. And just as the sun was starting to set, I saw it, Balboa Island. This place was absolutely massive. The next morning I docked on the beach, switched off my engines, dropped anchor, killed Bruce and I went ashore, ready to go harvest some wood to make a replacement bow. I killed Bruce again in the evening, filled up my tummy and the next morning started off by killing Bruce before heading to the island. Finally I was ready. Made my way onto the island, ignoring all the warning signs of apparent bears. Well, that was until one started chasing me. I got ready to start shooting it, but boy were these guys fast. Luckily I was able to kill it just before it leaped on me, harvested its body and continued searching around. Ran into another bear that I managed to take care of swiftly, found some glowing blueberries as well as the drawbridge to the ranger station that I shot to make it go down. Made my way inside to see what was there.
The kids are fighting.
Managed to turn on the station and saw that I needed to find 2 more, so I went exploring. But the next station location was blocked by a place where I needed a machete, so I searched for the 3rd one. The next morning I had to kill yet another bear, finally took it down, and after a little bit of more searching, I found the place for the 2nd location of the ranger station. I made my way upstairs, collected some loot, turned it on, and now just 1 more. I was running a little bit low on water, so I made my way back to the raft, killed Bruce, and resupplied. By that evening I stumbled on the location of Mama Bear, and luckily I saw a bin where I could place down my berries to distract her, make my way into the cave and found the machete. Also weirdly enough some light bulb, and continued searching. Got snuck upon by a bear, and after getting a jump scare I managed to take it down.
Why is there a bicycle?
The next morning saw the happiest little llama, grabbed myself some wood as well as some honeycombs, and made it back to the cave, put my machete to use, broke through all the vines, and once I broke through, made my way up the final ranger station and rescued the survivor. I also turned on the tower and this gave me the coordinates of the next location. On my way back I spotted some bees, got another jump scare by a bear that I managed to swiftly take down, and I knew I wanted to come back to capture some of the bees. I saw another bear but my bow was about to break so I had to retreat.
Oh, where did you come from? Oh.
Finally I passed my happy little llama, hopped in the water to kill Bruce, made myself the net. The next morning I killed Bruce again, and I got this sudden urge that I wanted to kill Mama Bear. Now, don't ask me why I came up with this stupid idea, but I mean, I had 60 arrows and 2 bows. I was sure that I could do it. But boy, was I wrong, and I just wasted a ton of arrows. And only when I saw another bear, I realized I had no weapons aside from a half-broken spear, but luckily that's all I needed. I caught myself some bees, and then made my way back to the raft so I could fill up on arrows yet again, as I still had one location I needed to find. So I rearmed, made some grass for the llamas, took a brief nap, and the next morning woke up to an empty stomach, so I fueled up with some shark meat and watermelon, killed my good friend Bruce, and made one final trip to Balboa Island, catching all the bees I could find, killing some more bears along the way, and making my way back to the second ranger station to drop off the mystery items I found that unlocked a special achievement.
Is that all I get, a note?
And just as the sun was setting, I was making my way back, got a little bit lost, so I used my flashlight and was able to finally find my raft. Threw all my new resources in the research table, and also remembered I haven't made armor yet, which would probably have come in handy against these bears. So finally I made my first set, had a brief night's rest, killed Bruce the next morning, and it was officially day 50. I had made it halfway. As I filled up my engines, typed in my new location of Carvavan Town, I got ready to set sail yet again. And this time at least I knew I had more than enough wood to get me there, so I kept stoking the engines throughout the entire day, right into the evening, and that's when I noticed I probably didn't have enough wood. So I spotted an island along the way and decided to set course to it. But this wasn't actually a big island. After quickly taking care of Bruce, I went to rest up, fill up my tummy, and went to investigate this strange new island that came with pigs that I managed to slaughter for no bacon, but at least this island came with loot as well as honeycombs and bees. I also went to check out the store's inventory and thought I would work on trash cubes next. I also saw a pufferfish in the water, and you can never give up that net gun ammo, killed Bruce another time, made my explosive powder and my net gun, because the next morning I saw there was a chicken on this island, an awesome addition to my petting zoo. I named him Fred, dropped him off, angled my sails, and I got ready to paddle away.
Wait, what was that? An egg! Fred, you lay eggs!
Finally the mystery was solved of what came first, the chicken or the egg. I dropped myself down some large crock pots, and the next morning made my way on another island, killed some more pigs, killed some more pufferfish as well as Bruce, made some more net gun ammo so I could capture my very first goat, took him back and named him Billy Bob, saw another island so picked up anchor, made a trash cube bin and started making my very own trash cubes. I also dropped down some fuel bins for the engine and made a biofuel refinery. We were really going green on this. Finally I could make my own fuel as well as trash. The next morning I killed Bruce and harvested my very own trees. Finally I had a wood farm. I immediately replanted, dropped down some metal as well as grabbed my first biofuel that immediately got the engines running again, and made some upgrades to my collection nets. The next morning I harvested more of my trees yet again, grabbed some resources and started working on my little captain's corner. I continued navigating towards the location, hitting every single island along the way. By the morning I set anchor, killed Bruce, and got ready to harvest up all the resources, of course not missing the opportunity to grab more wood from harvesting the trees. I continued the build and started melting down all the metal that I got from the island. I then continued to set sail, but found another island by that evening, so I dropped anchor and saw the next morning my first biofuel was ready. I then hopped in the water to slay Bruce, and once he was dealt with, collected some more ocean loot. Finally all three of my engines were filled to the brim. I could now finally sit back and relax as I start driving towards Caravan Park. Well, at least I thought I was doing that. You see, I had moved my receiver and for some reason was navigating to the radio tower. So I altered my course, saw it was not too far from it, and I kept sailing throughout the night, and by the next day, in the afternoon, I finally spotted Carvavan Town. So by the evening, I sat down anchors, took a brief nap, and got ready to go exploring. Of course, we had to kill Bruce first, harvest some trees so we could keep our wood farm going, and I also wanted to start producing my own honey. So I spent the rest of the day making all the materials for the island, killing Bruce, grabbing some more materials, and I took a nice nap. And by the next morning, I was ready. I found some battery parts and started searching all the caravans. They were filled with loot. So much so that I had to make numerous trips back to the raft. I found my first note, as well as a very curious little chicken, as I enjoyed some cocktails from the caravan. But that's when I heard a strange noise. There was apparently another screecher here, but he nearly ended up killing my little chicken friend. I then found a strange puzzle, a series of plastic tubes that you have to rotate to get the water flowing down to the bottom where a well was located. Finally, I had figured it out, and as the water was filling up the well, it revealed a special prize, a zipline part. But I noticed a shadow. I was being followed by this creature. So I got ready to take care of it, as the last thing I needed was this thing to kill one of my pets. Finally, he went down, and so did Bruce. I then went to save every chicken I could find, naming the first one Lucy, and capturing yet another that I named Becky. I spent the rest of the day searching around and finally found another note as well as the area where you made the zipline, but I still needed some parts. So I continued searching up all the caravans, collecting all the loot that was there, searching around for the zipline parts, found another experiment of a bicycle with a tube attached to it, and then shortly after some rockets.
Dato's experiment journal, attempt 733.
But it needed explosive powder, so I went back to the raft to grab all my scuba gear, slaughtered Bruce, and made my way back to the strange bicycle, and that's where I discovered the motherlode of pufferfish. This was great news for my petting zoo. Finally, after killing up them all, I made my way to the very bottom, where I spotted another blueprint, a key, as well as a zipline part. I then started making my way back, collecting all the loot along the way, killing Bruce before stopping off at the raft, and after killing him, I dropped off some supplies. The next morning started with killing Bruce yet again, and then making my way back to the rocket now that I had the explosive powder. But that's when I spotted a red chicken, something that's very rare in Raft, so of course I had to have her. I tamed her up and named her Mary Ann, and sat off the rocket as I dropped Mary Ann down for a second, but she disappeared. So I went looking for her, finally finding her, and we went to see where the rocket would land. We went closer to investigate. I dropped Mary Ann down for some safekeeping, and I made my way up the little cliff to find the rocket. Once I discovered its belongings, I had another zipline part. I then picked up Mary Ann, only to see the pufferfish had respawned, so I dropped her off yet again, and I wanted to go grab some more explosive powder. Once I went back to Mary Ann, she was missing. I didn't know where she was.
No, Marianne! I swear I can hear her. Is she in the mesh? Tell me she's not in the mesh. Oh, Marianne, where are you?
I didn't want to give up my search. I even went to the surrounding islands, but she was just nowhere in sight. So I made my way back to the raft to drop off some stuff. The next morning, killed Bruce yet again, and with my new zipline attachment, I went exploring the new areas. Slaughtered a whole bunch of little piggies that were easy to deal with, and found some healing salve, as well as the key to the mayor's cabin and another note. I then ziplined over to the mayor's caravan and went inside to discover some nice new blueprints, one being engine controls as well as the note to the new location, Tangaroa.
Look at me, I am the mayor now. It looks so silly.
I then hopped back in the ocean to slaughter Bruce, and after researching all my nice new items, went to bed. The next morning I decided to give the Mary Ann search one more shot. I went back searching around where I last saw her, but she was nowhere to be found or heard this time. So I decided to cheer myself up by collecting a ton of pufferfish yet again. With all the new explosive goo, I would be able to capture every single animal I would come across. I went to search even where the chickens spawn, but nothing in sight. So I killed Bruce out of frustration and made my way back to the raft to start navigating to my new location. I popped in the coordinates, saw it wasn't too far away, sparked up all the engines, and I started pushing forward. The next morning I stumbled upon another medium-sized island, full of hope that I would find another red chicken. Once I got close enough, I switched off my engines and went to drop anchor. That engine controls would really come in handy. After killing Bruce and collecting all the underwater resources, being metal ore, seaweed and scrap, I went to rest up for the night. The next morning I made my way ashore and found another goat. Fine, it wasn't a red chicken, but Janice was the new member of the family. I then collected some bees, killed some pigs, bought some planks and planted myself some trees. I also moved my beehives to a larger area, sparked up the engines, and I was getting tired of all the water these guys were drinking, so I dropped down a sprinkler. The next morning I arrived at another pretty big island, which would mean I would get a ton more wood. So I made my way ashore and found another chicken. Named her Felicia, and I went to harvest all the wood that I could find throughout this island, and boy was there a lot. I dropped off all the wood that evening, killed Bruce the next morning, as well as worked on my biofuel to get my engines nicely filled. I discovered the island cave, which meant I could add more grass for all my pets, and then went back to the island. Noticed there was a screecher, so of course had to take it down, collect its feathers, and went exploring the tip top of the mountain, where I found my new llama named Bilbo. The next morning I made some more fuel tanks, dropped them down, filled them with biofuel, and I got ready to start up all of my engines. Now that I no longer needed wood for them, I could finally start upgrading the raft. I also spotted another big island, so I knew I wanted to go there. I need the engine controls! I then dropped down some flower pots and killed Bruce before calling it a night and going ashore the next morning.
Do I hear a screecher?
After tracking it down, I started pelting it with arrows, and this guy made it easy by landing on the ground a lot. Finally threw the final arrow and he went down right in front of me. I collected some more feathers and went all over the island, harvesting all the wood that I could possibly find until my axe broke, collected some flowers, and by that evening I was able to plant them, and now I finally had bees. But that wasn't the only problem. This would also attract seagulls, not one but two. These guys would definitely be annoying me over the next few days, but at least I get feathers. The next morning I finished up farming the entire island, searching for all the loot, as well as finding another goat, taming him up and naming him Franklin. I made sure to maintain my honey productions as they were essential to my engines. Finally I booted them up and continued sailing. I wanted to reach the next location by day 75. I then made some more internal upgrades and dropped down some of my warthog trophies to make my internal farming room look nice. But I heard my engines stop and I was really confused for a second. They all had fuel. I had no idea what was going on, and that's when it clicked. Bruce had taken down one of the supporting blocks of the final engine. So of course I had to craft up a new one, but this time I upgraded the foundations to a much stronger one so that wouldn't happen again in the future. I continued placing down all my warthogs, and just as I went over to fill up my water, I spotted it, the next location. I didn't know what Tangaroa was, but boy was this place massive. This must be the blue floating city I heard about on the yacht. Finally I found an opening and I parked my raft as close as I could, turned off engines and I geared up. I managed to locate the entrance hatch and made my way inside. I spotted a sign for a cafeteria and immediately wanted food, but I was met with a mutated rat, and these were a lot stronger than the ones from the yacht. Finally I tracked down the cafeteria, but there was no food left. The rats had eaten it all. I then found some generator parts and made my way over to the storage area. After unlocking it, I found yet another generator part. Saw that one of the ladders were broken and then found the generator that I could power up. It seems like there was some form of a puzzle where I had to move containers around in order to open up my pathway. This took me quite a bit of time, but finally by the next morning, I had a clear path. I made my way inside where I found some titanium. This was amazing. And finally went over to the next location. Surface access. Boy was I excited. But this door had no surface, it had water, and now the place was flooding. I ran as quick as I could, but I was seriously panicking.
water's coming so fast. Where do I go? Where do I go? Where do I go?
And that's when I remembered the broken ladder from before. The water level had risen high enough that I was able to climb it. Next up was the plantation, an area that was being electrocuted by some form of cable shortage. So I made my way hopping across from one box to another, even finding some bananas along the way. I then discovered some tape, and I used this tape to fix up the first circuit box, and it opened the door that finally revealed the surface access. This place was amazing. It was massive. I searched around for an exit to go back to the raft, as I knew I would need to drop off a ton of loot. Finally, I found the one right by my raft. I opened it up and it dropped down, literally right on top of my raft, so this was amazing. After killing Bruce, I made myself a ton of metal axes as I saw a ton of trees. So I got some good rest because the next day I would go lumberjacking. After taking care of Bruce, I made my way inside yet again and sit back, enjoy this tree chopping montage. My final axe broke and I felt like I didn't even make a dent in it. I also found these not so friendly robots that revealed a key. Not so sure what it was for, but for now I needed to go kill off Bruce, drop off all the material and replace all my metal axes. By that evening I made it back and finished up all the trees. The place was fully cleared out, so now it was time to finish the local wildlife, being these weird taser robots. I then made my way back to the raft to rest up for the evening, and the next morning was able to use my keycards and enter the buildings. I rode an elevator, which I never thought I would do in raft, and then made my way inside to search for loot. Of course, killing the local tenants first, and once they were taken care of, went around and searched for loot items, searching in the drawers, and finding these vending machine tokens, and also cutting my way through to find even more tape. Just as the sun was setting, I made my way into building number 2, made my way up and started searching around yet again, grabbing all the tape and loot that I could find, slaughtering more of the tenants and grabbing some more tokens. And by the evening making my way back to the raft so I could drop off my inventory. The next morning started by killing Bruce, dropped down some more storage since I was running out of space. I chopped down some of my banana trees, replanted them, and then made my way back inside, ready to start searching the next building. It turned out that this was some form of office, so I searched through all the desk drawers and went to slaughter the local office T-boy.
Either give me coffee or die.
After taking care of him, I finished up my search and made my way back to the raft to drop off all the loot. The next morning I found a locked door and then went searching the final building that there was. Found some more vending machine tokens and tape and then made it up to the roof where I spotted some zip lines. And this was pretty fun. You had to zip line from the one and make a jump to another to find even more loot. After everything was grabbed, I made my way back to the plantation, used all my tape to fix the final broken wires, revealing yet another elevator. That took me to some form of a birthday party. I wasn't too happy that I wasn't invited to this, so of course I had to kill the birthday boy.
Yeah, who's gonna eat all this cake now?
I continued searching around, found a broken window that revealed yet another zipline across to another locked building. The staircase was blocked going down, so I was forced to make my way up, where I found yet another zipline, finally taking me to the center tower. I didn't really know what the hell to expect, but saw yet another elevator. Made my way up, and inside I found a blueprint, notes, as well as a keypad. So I opened up my notebook and saw it was yet another riddle.
Oh, it's the street name and locations. That's pretty cool.
So the next morning I sat out, trying to find all 4 the locations on the street names and then finding the corresponding building number. Once I had all 4 the building numbers, I would have the order of the password. I quickly made my way back to the raft as I wanted to kill Bruce as well as drop off my inventory. The next morning I filled up my tummy And once I was nicely fed, I made my way back inside and also finally discovered the vending machine, so I was able to buy myself a ton of nice goodies. Using all the coins I collected, I bought some meals as well as a radio, which I was pretty excited to use. Finally, I made my way back inside the elevator, punched in the keys, and then the entire building started to shake.
Oh no, what the hell? Please don't tell me it was a self-destruct. What is that?
After nearly getting hit by some glowing object, I opened the doors and saw that I had launched the top of the tower. It fell into the ocean, so I needed to investigate. I probably should have brought my raft for this, but I was way too curious. So I swam closer, climbed up on the ladders, and had a little peek inside, when I found a little lady. She wasn't too happy that I launched without her warning, but I had another blueprint as well as new coordinates, so I was super excited. Veruna was up next. I swam back to the raft, killing Bruce along the way, and finally when he was slaughtered, I started punching in my new coordinates and then noticed that it wasn't very far from me at all. I then smelted down all my titanium, started upgrading my living room, dropping down my new flower pots and paintings, grabbed my titanium so I could research some more new objects, which finally included engine controls, so that was definitely the first thing I made. And boy, was this gonna make life hell of easy. No more stressing every time I reached an island. Sailing was a breeze. I started pushing forward, but I also wanted to make my raft look pretty. Time was starting to run out, and I had a ton of material. So I started working on some upgrades. I even dropped new rope fences in my petting zoo that seemed a lot more fitting.
Excuse me, Timothy, I kinda need this space.
The animals made it a little bit hard to finish building.
What are you doing, Fred? Come here, back in the cage.
By the evening I reached another island, so I killed Fred, made a little captain's corner, killed Fred again in the morning, and once he was dealt with, farmed up all the resources. I still needed a little bit of things here and there, and of course a ton of wood, as I was planning a very special room for the final day. So I continued finishing up my little captain's corner, and on the next morning I started making adjustments on my old roof. And by the end of the day, I spotted yet another island, so I set course for it, dropped anchor, did some more decor and made some more crop pots, and by the next morning hopped in the water to kill Bruce, farm up the ocean resources, and then finally go ashore to farm up all the trees. I then picked up all my crop pots, also managed to make myself a snazzy little fireplace that really gave the room a nice touch. I then picked up all my beehives and biofuel and made some more alterations to my storage building. The next morning I moved my biofuel production to the bottom floor and continued turning all the old wood into the reinforced ones and then placing all my crop pots on the roof, as this way I could add 2 more. I then dropped more staircases on the back side, killed Bruce the next morning and had a quick look if there were more big islands nearby, as I was gonna need a lot more wood. Not only that, after the alterations, my engines were no longer powerful enough. So I decided to add a 4th, and I also decided I wanted to move all my engines to the back side, as this would give me a lot more space on the sides. I then filled in the engine gap with some more nets, and created a new line for the back nets, adding in some more foundations and killing Bruce right before going to bed. The next morning I picked up the final engines and also moved them to the back, and this really looked cool. I finished up the nets just as I saw the big island come into render, so I slightly reversed, paddled closer, and I got ready to drop anchor. The next morning I made my way ashore, chopped down some trees, gathered up some honey, caught up a few more bees, and took care of the local bear wildlife that were harassing the goats. Of course I had to take this goat back home, as it would be a lot safer with me, so meet Freddy. Finally finishing up the night with chopping down some more trees. The next morning I decided to decrease the width of the raft. This would give me the last missing wood I would need, and by the evening I replaced back all the nets. The next morning I continued altering my course. I was really getting close. I found yet another big island and I knew this would be my final stop. So I harvested all my trees, made some more biofuel so my engines would be ready for the adventure. I then quickly killed Bruce, went ashore and got spotted by a bear right away. So I made quick work of killing Yogi Bear and his friend shortly after. I then went farming up more dirt so I could finish my pet area and harvested every tree that I could possibly find. collected any loot on the island, and farmed whatever there was. By the next morning, I caught myself another ghost. She had a snow white strip, so I named her Alice. Hopped in the water to kill Bruce. Once he was dealt with, picked up anchors, started up my engines, and I had to take care of an annoying seagull. Finally, I was setting course to Veruna, sailing and grabbing any resources along the way, and by the evening I noticed I was getting really close. So I made one final steering adjustment, and then finally I spotted it. Boy, was this a sight, a construction site to be exact. The next morning I killed Bruce, shaved my llama so I could make some more armor, killed Bruce again in the evening, and filled up my tummy with some nice barbecue and cocktails. The next morning I made my way inside, had to wait for the light bulbs to clear the jellyfish, ran into an anglerfish, and boy was this thing creepy and fast. I collected some light bulbs in the bottom floor and then made my way upstairs, killed another angler, and found the final missing globes. Made my way out and killed Bruce, worked on some more renovations, and by the next morning made my way back, killed Bruce yet again, and then I went to place my bulbs into this massive spotlight, which cleared my new destination, a room filled with boogie traps that I had to cautiously jump and navigate over. Whoever stayed in here was definitely not very welcoming towards their visitors. Finally, I made it to the end of the boogie traps and discovered a key, as well as some strange puppet and a blueprint. I then felt a massive tremor. I wasn't sure what the hell that was, I just wanted to get out of here. So I went back to the raft to make my new headlights, work on the secret renovations, and made my way back into the ocean, where I found the secret door. And just as I got ready to open the door, I felt the tremors again. There was definitely something big in here.
Oh boy, I'm nervous. What is this? What is this? What is this? What the hell is that thing?
And there it was, a massive rhino shark. I saw the big idiot swim into the pillars, and I knew that was most likely the strategy. I needed to lure him to take down these pillars, as I saw some TNT in the middle. And me killing 100 sharks already? Boy, was I trained for this. So I grabbed my first piece of TNT and swam over to the nearby pillar, dropping it safely inside and waiting for the big lump of meat to make his way inside. And there he was. Now I just needed to line him up and direct hit.
That was way too easy. I'm definitely trained for this. Where the hell is he? Where is he? I don't like when I don't see him. Oh, there he is. Oh, Manny, it's hard.
This big boy definitely packed a punch, and he was becoming more elusive on the second floor. I quickly went to grab some air, and once I spotted him making his way back into the room, I could finally line him up. But this time the pillar didn't break.
Come on, where are you? Oh, he's right behind me. Oh.
And the shark was quickly becoming more elusive. Finally, I lined him up a second time, and down went the pillar. Grabbed my TNT, but he was onto me and I took another massive hit. I needed to rush for oxygen.
Where are you? Oh, no, again? Seriously?
He was making it harder and harder for me to breathe, but finally I got the final hit in on the pillar, and I was now cleared to go to the third floor. I quickly rushed over to an oxygen vent, and he snuck up behind me yet again. This guy was really getting sneaky. I lined him up and got the first hit in on the pillar, rushed down to get some more oxygen.
Come on, where are you? Where are you? It's gotten so dark. I don't know if it's nighttime or what the hell. Where are you?
I got another massive hit in on the back, but finally lined him up. And now I was just one hit away. Finally, the pillar was down. I just needed my TNT.
Oh, he's next to me. Oh, luckily it didn't explode.
Finally, I placed down what would be the final TNT. Waited around for him, but he was a little bit too smart. Not attacking. And then finally, when he went for it, he ended up missing the pillar completely. But I was adamant. I lined him up and finally took the final hit. But I was running out of oxygen, so I quickly grabbed a big gulp of air and saw that I had been victorious. So I grabbed my trophy, made my way upstairs as I was about to run out of time. I really wanted to finish this location, so I grabbed the crane key, swam up to the surface, killed Bruce the final time. I then made my way up the scaffolding, did some parkour, and of course ran into another rodent rat, and finally climbed up the crane. I started up the crane and watched on as it dropped a massive net of heavy objects through the building floor. I then spotted there was a zip line to my left, so I made my way down, overlooking my amazing raft. Finally, dropping down on the next building, dropping down to the basement floor, it revealed the final location I was searching for, another blueprint and yet another note. So I made my way out of the building, went through the exit door, and slowly started swimming back to my raft. And there you have it, folks. I officially survived 100 days of raft. Killing Bruce 100 times, I am officially now known as the Shark Slayer, and this was the special room that I was working on. I then made my way back to my navigation center so I could start navigating to my next location, Temperance, dropped down the coordinates and got ready to boot up my engine. After booting it up, I realized all the renovations made my engines too weak yet again, as my foundation limits exceeded them. So for now, that's all you get. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, and please, if you enjoyed this, leave a like, leave a comment, as it really helps motivate me to do more 100 days on different games. Thanks to my Patreons, and thank you for sticking around until the end.